They say you can't go home again. You can, but perhaps you shouldn't. I was visiting my hometown after an exile of many years and had reconnected with an old friend I hadn't seen in a too long time. We decided to go for a walk in the old neighborhood and, as part of our trip down memory lane, decided to stop by the old school. I hadn't seen it for 25 years. I can't say I liked school much back then, but I had spent 8 years of my life there, so we had to go look. From the outside, the place looked pretty much the same. We could have been standing there looking at it on a late night during the 1980s. The school was a one-story, T-shaped building of orange-brown brick, and had aged fairly well, but it was obvious it had been built in the early 60s. 1962, in fact. "Does it look kind of small to you?" Buddy said. "When I was a kid, I thought it was huge." "Yeah, but we were little kids back then." "Not so little in grade 8. "Whatever," I said. "Let's go out back and see if the playground has shrunk too." The playground still looked pretty big, but then my buddy and I had grown up at a time when kids played outside at recess and needed a lot of space. A full moon had come out from behind the dark clouds, and we found that we had, instinctively, begun making a circuit of the building. And that's when we saw the kid. They were standing at the side of the basketball court, a short, dark figure with a hoodie over its head, so he couldn't tell if it was a boy or a girl, although I immediately thought it a boy. "What's a young kid doing out here alone?" Buddy said. "And at this time of night, too," for it was after midnight. He called, "Hey, kid," and began to walk towards the dark figure. But I held back. The truth was that I was suddenly afraid. Actually, it was worse than that, way worse. A wave of the most intense, icy fear washed over me, so strong I was almost sick. And what I really wanted to do was run away, fast. But I couldn't leave Buddy. The moon went momentarily behind a cloud, and when it emerged, the kid was gone. But the back doors of the school stood wide open. These were the doors we used to go in for class. The front doors were reserved for adults and important visitors. I saw Buddy heading towards them and blurted, "I don't think we should go in there, eh?" He turned and squinted at me. "Why not? The kid's in there." "Isn't that breaking and entering?" I said. But even as I said it, it sounded lame, even to me. "Something weird is going on. We gotta check it out. You know we've gotta check it out," he said. And so we did. I expected it to be pitch black in there, but there seemed to be light coming from the old auditorium. Everything was deathly silent, and there was no sign of the kid anywhere. We made our way towards the light and peeped into the room where we used to go for assemblies and the whole interior was suffused by a deep bluish light which obscured as much as it revealed. But we could see the big room was filled with dark hooded figures kneeling before the stage, on which stood a silent choir. The choir was dressed completely in black, their heads lowered, their faces hidden, so it was impossible to determine age or gender, but their size suggested they were around 13 years old. The silence was total. I think Buddy was about to yell, "What's going on?" But something, fear perhaps, restrained him. And then suddenly there was a tremendous sound, like the pealing of a massive church organ, and the blue light turned to purple, turned to scarlet, turned to hot pink, became an intense and blinding whiteness, and all the kids on stage raised their heads and removed their hoods. I screamed then. In fact, we both screamed. Their faces were chalk white, dead, bloodless. But it was the eyes that turned our bowels to water. They were jet black, pools of Stygian blackness, which seemed to radiate gloom. And the kids were smiling. The kids that had knelt on the floor had risen, pulling back their hoods and turning to look at us with those same dead eyes, that same sardonic smile. I had heard of the BEK, the black-eyed children, but I hadn't believed in them till now. But he said just one word. "Run!" We ran, with a whole assembly of the damned at our heels. We could hear their black, high-topped sneakers scuffling across the floor. We made for the back doors, which were still wide open, and stumbled out, to be instantly blinded. "What are you men doing in there?" a loud cop voice demanded. There were two of them, both carrying LED flashlights, their caps pulled low. "There are kids," I started to say, then changed it to, "We saw a little kid go in there." Of course, they looked, and of course, they found nothing, which is how we wound up handcuffed in the back of a police car. I was philosophical. You know, after all the years I lived in this town, I have to come here on vacation to get arrested. Busted at age 50. My buddy didn't think it was so funny. The police station was on the north side of town, but we soon realized the cops had driven past it, and we were now out in the country. "Hey, where are you taking us?" Buddy said. They stopped the car and turned to face us, lifting the brims of their caps to reveal their eyes. They were jet black, pools of Stygian blackness, which seemed to radiate gloom. And worst of all, the cops were smiling. They say you can never go home again. They're right. If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. My name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories, featuring such cryptids as the Night Floaters, werewolves, and the black-eyed children. So again, please consider subscribing. Help me to reach my goal of 2,500 subs. Till midnight. Cheers. Pictures used today, courtesy of Pics Here. That's PX Here. While the music was the bowel-watering The Dread by that patron of the internet, Kevin MacLeod.